Guys, welcome back. This is another episode of the Jordan Patrick Show. I'm your host, Jordan, here with Elliot and Richie. What's going on, guys? How we doing?
I'm great. Good morning. Going to be covering
Good morning.
some various topics here.
Yes, we're going to be all over the place. I want to start the show, guys, with the men's Olympic basketball team and this severe disappointment that I'm experiencing right now. The loss to France, the most recent loss to France. Is it a big deal, Rich? Is it I'll let you go from here. Just run with it.
It's a very big deal. They're not supposed to lose a game like that, and I can't remember the last time Team USA lost their very first game, and they had a pretty crappy exhibition run going into this. They look terrible.
We don't look like the teams from the 90s. You know, it's not a good look right now for the U.S. France beats us 83-76, ending a 25-game win streak.
That's Olympic game win streak. I mean,
yeah.
I think we lost a game or two in one of the qualifiers or, one of those off-brand tournaments. But, 25-game unbeaten streak at the Olympics. It's a pretty big deal, pretty big milestone to lose on.
It really is. It really is. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we lost two exhibition games back to back, which is just not pretty. So what's the common denominator here? What's going on with this team that you guys can see as to why we're not succeeding? Are these teams in Europe and elsewhere, are they catching up to us on the level that we used to be? What's going on here?
Me personally, I don't think it's so much that they caught up. I just think it's a different brand of basketball because a lot of these guys that play for these other countries, not necessarily superstars in the NBA, but I do think that there's a different found pride when they represent their countries. And I also think, like I said, it's a different brand of basketball. We've all been critical about officiating in the NBA and how on some layers we feel that it's almost guaranteed whistles for the superstars. You're not going to get that in an Olympic game.
You're not. You're definitely not. It's a good point. How much of this falls on the back of Popovich, El, the head coach? Is he a huge factor in this, or how do you?
I mean, you always want to let the blame share to the entire organization, whether it be in international basketball or back at home in the NBA. His team lost. He's part of the problem with the losing team. But I'll say this: I think the talent gap globally is closing, which you guys just addressed. It's not closed, but it is a smaller, which means smaller margin for error. And if we're being honest, this isn't a top-tier roster for U.S. basketball.
It's really
we're
not.
Missing some pretty big names. It's not devoid of star power, but we're talking about missing some of our elite players.
We are. Anthony Davis is not there. Obviously, there's a couple other players that are not playing, but you got guys in the starting roster that have proven to not be team players, such as KD. I mean, kind of a big deal. We'll get to that in just a minute, but the rest of that roster doesn't match up to that 92 roster. Rich, can you go over that with me a little bit?
Well, I mean, the 92 team, that was the first time that they allowed pros to go and represent the country, because prior to that, it was NCAA kids that were NBA bound.
Right.
USA wanted to make sure that they proved the points of the world, and they did that. But when you have the face of your league and all his contemporaries playing on the same team, along with Christian Laettner, who at the time was the best college player, changes the landscape of what the expectation was. Now you fast forward to what's going on now, and I think one of the bigger problems is just continuity. They'll beat all those guys one-on-one. But when you look at these other countries, they play together more, and it's not different guys representing the countries. It's usually the same guys.
That's right.
Where in the USA, you might have the marquee guys that are going to go for at least 2 runs there. But the rest of your roster, it varies every 4 years or 8 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It's you're getting a different look. And to your earlier point, it's a different brand of basketball. As far as, let's just specifically say European basketball is, they have shooters. They play great defense and they play team ball. I mean, I'd say the U.S. kind of lacks in all those areas.
Emphasize team. That's really what it becomes.
But starts with the team. And if you're not,
but that's kind of a common point, guys. Don't forget, a lot of these guys only have 1 star or 2 stars, right? And we know they lean on those players that we might know are in the NBA. So yeah, they have a generally more balanced game plan, but they still are leaning heavy on star power. I just look at this as a continuation of the end of that 2020 year of pandemic nonsense. Like, how many of these players are not playing this year because of injuries or concerns about the pandemic? And with all the packed schedule, you have more players picking up injuries, etc. To me, this is just a roster thing. Our players that are the best players to represent our country aren't all there.
Another thing too is that
players specifically. Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Some of these guys just got done with the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Holiday; he was in the NBA Finals. He came out really late. But that's going to weigh heavy because the NBA playoffs is pretty intense. And
that's absolutely a factor. Absolutely a factor, for sure.
I'm not saying that the guys don't care, but I do have a hard time believing that they value this Olympic experience on the same level as they do the NBA playoffs. And it's around the world, it's recognized that the NBA is the premier basketball league, the same as MLB would be for baseball, even though you have great Japanese players. Great players in the Dominican Republic.
The approach of the 1992 team, for example, they wanted to set an example and make an example out of these other teams and show how much they actually cared and how much this meant to them and to our country. And I definitely feel like I agree with you. It's a lackadaisical approach that these guys are taking. And there's a lot of factors to it. Continuity, exhaustion from the finals just being right there, and playoffs for that matter too. There's a lot of factors that come into play here, but that team
a full display of how serious. I mean, you saw one team headed by Magic, another team headed by MJ, that were going at it, preparing for these games.
Right.
It was like watching an NBA All-Star game when they had that. Nobody sees the bleachers, but yeah. But I mean,
that's the difference.
Serious. So who was going to beat them when they were beating the crap out of each other like that?
Another player on that team, though, guys, Scottie Pippen, has found himself in some drama again. He can't seem to stay out of the spotlight. I don't know if he enjoys it or what, but have you guys caught on to this and what's going on? And there's a few storylines that are kind of trending here. And my personal favorite is what he's dealing with KD right now, and the comments that he made about KD and LeBron. Basically went on Twitter and just kind of laid into KD, saying that he'll never be LeBron. He's not a team player. He has gone to organizations like, when he was in OKC, he had Westbrook, and then he was in, where was he? In Golden State. That team already knew how to win. They didn't need KD. He was just an addition. Yeah, so I mean, it's something that he was giving him hell for, and KD clapped back. Did you guys see this?
Yes.
No, I didn't. Tell me, Rich.
Kind of enjoyable.
Well, Scotty talked about how he didn't view KD on the same level as LeBron James because he didn't feel that KD ever carried a team the same way LeBron has. KD clapped back, essentially saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Oh, the great Scottie Pippen who refused to go into a game." He was
basically discussing the. I'll pull it up exactly. We'll just get it verbatim. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have it offhand here, but either way, he's basically saying that. Paraphrasing as well. You sat out for the last second shot of the game because you had a disagreement with Phil Jackson because you weren't that dude. He put in Tony Kukoc, made that shot. They win 104-102. And Pippen was basically saying that should have been me, and he was all butthurt about it. But that was a great clapback by KD. I thought it was like, a good, drop the mic kind of moment. Like, just shut up, Pippen.
I think he did better than he did against the Ginger Mamba. So I feel that, Superboy, that old situation, I think KD redeemed himself here in a better punch on a Twitter war.
Some of the Pippen comments real quick. KD can score better than LeBron, but has he surpassed LeBron? No. He tried to beat Milwaukee instead of utilizing his team. You see what I'm saying? Then he comes back and says LeBron would have figured out how to beat them and wouldn't have been exhausted, and he may not have taken the last shot. LeBron ain't KD, and KD ain't LeBron. And that's what really chapped KD's ass, and that's when he chimed back in.
I agree that KD has not done enough to surpass LeBron yet. But to say that LeBron would have just figured it out and not been exhausted, I can't co-sign that because LeBron wasn't able to do it against Phoenix.
Right.
And not for nothing, we know who the better team was between Phoenix and Milwaukee.
Oh, boy. Yeah. They came out. We all were wrong.
It turns out.
We're all kind of looking right now.
I don't think me and Jordan felt that way. I know I had Phoenix winning.
I had Phoenix winning.
Yeah, we all did.
Like I said. So, and you guys even went 7. But
the only thing we got right was the importance of that game 4.
Yeah.
It really was the momentum swinger, and holy shit, was it. But I'm not claiming any of us called that.
Not even close.
But getting
the only point
the Scottie Pippen thing here. Got to say this. I personally think he was pissed off when The Last Dance came out. He wasn't a big fan of the way he was portrayed. Kind of the jab at MJ, I get it. MJ called him selfish for getting surgery when he did. He missed half of that season, which was the culmination of their dynasty, the final year. Whereas Pippen took a shot at him saying that he was selfish for going out to play basketball. Excuse me, going out to play baseball for the
I know what you mean, but yeah.
So how do you feel? Like, what is the rest of this? Like, what is the rest of this drama? Like, what is the biggest deal? What is the biggest factor for this Pippen thing going on right now?
Well, I don't necessarily think that he's a fan of the way history remembers him. And that's even before all of this belly aching. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. When you think of the greatest duos of all time, you got your Kobe and Shaq duo that will always be up there. Magic and Kareem, without question, will always be up there. And Jordan and Pippen. But sadly, and I will give Scottie this much, it seems like out of those 6 players I just mentioned, Scottie gets the least love, but his duo had the most championships.
And MJ,
not too fair.
MJ would not have gone 6 for 6 without Pippen. Sorry, we'll just say that. But
Pippen has a better track record post Jordan than Jordan does post Pippen.
Exactly, and we'll leave it at that. I mean, there's some other Pippen drama that's old drama, new drama that's coming up.
Dude, Brett, I'm calling you out. I got Scottie as a top 20 player, no worse than top 25. Brett detested that. He's like, no way.
Yes, way. Yeah, he's definitely top 25, no doubt about that, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. What was his argument? Go into it a little bit.
Who, Brett's argument?
50 seconds. Go ahead, yeah.
He basically just said that Pippen was a beneficiary of playing with Jordan. I said, dude, 7 All-NBA first teams? One of the best defenders. He was ranked the 7th best player of the 90s.
Right. The only addition to defense that made that team just exponentially better at the time, which they didn't even know could be, was Rodman.
Brett feels like they could have interchanged him with a different dude from that era as a number 2, and it would have been fine. I think Brett's out of his mind.
Absolutely not. Yeah, definitely. That's not the case at all.
2002 was 94, but unfortunately, not going into that game, the year that they didn't have Jordan, that will always haunt him.
He was busy playing for the Birmingham Barons, and that's what we're going to roll into next is some of these baseball trades, guys. Have you seen these big blockbuster trades going on? Nelson Cruz gets acquired by my Tampa Bay Rays. I'm very happy about that. 41-year-old Nelson Cruz batting .294 with 19 home runs coming into Tampa. And his first at-bat gets his first hit with the Tampa Bay Rays hitting a home run. Pretty impressive stuff. I was very happy with this acquisition. And before I could even get through my next text with you guys, he had already hit a home run, basically, about how happy and excited I was to have him on the team. What's your feeling on this? Is it a big move for Tampa to make this push in the AL East? How are you feeling, Rich?
It's an affordable, viable bat, something that they desperately needed. At this stage of his career, that's all he does, and that's all he should do, and that's hit the baseball.
That's right.
And for his age, he still has the pop in his bat. You know, I'm not going to say he's a DH that Papi or Edgar Martinez was.
No.
He's definitely, for this phase of his career and what Major League Baseball has to offer, he's arguably the best DH in the league.
We sent a little bit of money, 4-player trade to Minnesota. Minnesota's cleaning house. And they pretty much already cleaned a few more guys on the chopping block. Have you seen what Chicago is doing that is similar to Minnesota? Gentlemen? They're going to dump this team. The Chicago Cubs are going to dump this team. They're talking about Rizzo on the chop block. They're talking about Bryant on the trade block. These guys are gone. They're going to start over.
It up. I'm
sorry?
They're blowing it up.
They really are. They're going to start over literally from the ground up. They said it's basically a fire sale. When it's going to start, it's not going to stop.
They're going to build around Baez. He's the only one that seems to be safe.
Even Baez was in that conversation. Everybody all the way down to Contreras, dude. They're going to dump that whole entire team. It's kind of scary. Who is let's take a look here real quick. I think Bryant was in discussion. Let me see here. Help me out, Rich. Bryant was potentially going to go where?
Possibly the New York Mets.
That's what it was, yes. And what's funny to me is the New York Mets are actually after pitching right now to try and keep up with, in my opinion, the Philadelphia Phillies. They're not really necessarily after these big bats like Bryant. Bryant's very much a home run hitter with the arc of that swing. But that's not really what they need right now. They need pitching. So I kind of find that funny. I think Bryant will end up elsewhere. But the main team they're focused on right now is trading to the Mets. Have you seen Rizzo and where he's going potentially?
I believe that Rizzo will be a Red Sox.
Yeah.
I think that puts them over the top to, at minimum, solidify a playoff berth. And it's going to come down to whoever plays best down the last 65 or so games between them and Tampa.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of Tampa and speaking of the Mets, Rich Hill went over to the Mets, and I like the deal for both teams.
I was happy to get rid of Hill, honestly.
Tampa has to stay young and has to keep themselves in a position to continue to develop. Because even though they can potentially win a World Series this year, and you think about guys that they lost, it's the culture there that's winning. They've proven that they can change the names but continue the same standard because it's a small budget club.
Very much so.
They've mastered it.
We got rid of Willie Adames to Milwaukee.
Yes.
A huge factor in the last few years. Here's
Blake
the
Snell was a Padre.
Right. Yeah, Blake Snell's a Padre. Having a tough time out there as well, might I add. Kevin Kiermaier is about the only name that's left from that World Series team in 2008. I think he's the only one.
Yeah, because Longoria left a few years ago. He's having a resurrection in the Bay Area.
San Fran, where he's from anyway.
But the other half of that trade, as far as the Mets go, Rich Hill is perfect for right now. I don't think he makes the postseason roster. I think he's there more so to hold down the fort while guys like Syndergaard and Carrasco are healing.
Exactly right.
Short-term kind of deal. So I think that he'll be back, no problem. It's the other two that they're waiting on for full health. Syndergaard is huge for what they're going to possibly do.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And you got potential guys. Yankees made a small, very unnoticeable move. Clay Holmes, Pittsburgh Pirates. Guy carries almost a 5 ERA. That's not all that attractive. The one positive thing, it happened all basically in 3 innings. What he does bring to the table, he's got a nice little sinker. That comes valuable in a stadium with a short porch.
Creates ground balls and double play situations.
Yeah, they're very much in on Trevor Story. And if that should happen, they'll just naturally move Glaber back to the other side of the field to second base, LeMahieu at first. And I imagine Giancarlo has no choice but to play left field now because that would force Voit into the DH position.
What is it going to take for New York to get Story? What are they going to have to offer up? Are there discussions and rumors about that?
I would have to imagine they're going to try to get Jason Dominguez, who is the Yankees' best prospect. I would have to think that he's going to be part of that.
There's going to be more than that. Yeah, there's going to be more than that.
It's going to be because the Yankees are trying to lowball them by sending guys like Frazier, possibly Andujar, and other level prospects. The Yankees have 4 in the top 100, but I do think that Dominguez is not a guy they want to deal. But, getting a guy like Trevor Story, who's a star now, and can play center field in addition to shortstop, Yankees might have to do it. And it's not so much about this year. They could or they could not make the wild card. It's more about setting up for the immediate future as opposed to a full rebuild.
I agree with you on the Rich Hill comment earlier. I think it's more of a Band-Aid to propel the Mets into the postseason when all their guys get healthy. They need all those big names back. How do you feel about Adam Frazier from the Pirates going over to the San Diego Padres? Is that going to propel them beyond San Fran, or is San Fran still just looking like a better team overall? Or the
That's
Dodgers, for that
a
matter.
tough question to answer because I think all three of those teams in that division are capable of winning the World Series.
I do
The
too.
reality is one of them is going to die in the wild card game.
Which one is it? Real quick, fire that off.
They got the least experience out of these teams.
Yeah, I'd say the Padres, but that's cool. We'll see how that transpires.
Depends how it plays, but I love the move. They have such a great lineup.
Speaking of the NL West, though,
Balance.
who does? The Padres, you're saying?
Yeah, the Padres between Tatis, Machado,
Grisham, yeah.
even Will Myers.
Yeah, Will Myers hitting down in the 6 hole lately. He's phenomenal. Stealing bases still at his age, too. Not
Good.
too old, but speaking of teams in the NL West, the Dodgers. Looking forward to having Trevor Bauer back or not, and why so?
It's a rough situation, and I look at it similarly to when Domingo Germán had his domestic incident, and a couple of players, mainly Zach Britton, spoke out about how hard to look at the guy the same. Now, there's details that are still coming out in Bauer's situation, of course, but not a good look by any means, and something that a lot of guys in that locker room are not pleased with.
Explain the story to our listener. Unfold it for him and explain why there's tension there.
Well, apparently on Bauer's end, and my understanding the female's end too, it was a consensual situation between the two that got overly physical. And I haven't seen the pictures, but I heard the pictures were a little on the gory side. And not something that's cool, man. Definitely not something that's cool and that you want your brand or just anyone to see for that matter.
Not a good look. Not a good look. But, something that is pretty cool and the development of baseball moving forward is the Cleveland Indians changing their name to the Guardians. Did you guys see this? And if so, do you like this or not? How do you feel? I think it's great. I think it's a good transition, but I want to get y'all's opinion. El, how do you feel about this?
It's absolutely the right decision. We spoke about it a little before we got on here, and yeah, I think it's brilliant. The name itself, but the idea is this.
I kind of like it a lot, actually.
Right. It's not controversial. It's not too cookie cutter. It's but the reality is this: the people that they were aiming at are the right people, right? People that were not going to like this for a changing period weren't going to be convinced no matter what fucking name you came up. There was no name that would satisfy them. They just didn't want change. That's okay. Some people stick to their traditions, but the reality is this: the core of baseball fans, y'all are pretty much diehards. You got to know a lot to enjoy and love the game the way you guys do. And that's not going to keep an audience around anymore. And they're seeing that. To get the younger generations, you need to, in some cases, pander a little bit to social trends, whatever it may be. They're doing the right thing. Get rid of a controversial name, bring in something that's non-controversial, try and bring in the younger audience, because you can't lean on the boomer demographic forever.
What I would have to say about this too, I don't know all the specifications. I'd have to look it up. But the Guardians name actually is centered into the history of Cleveland. So it's not like they just pulled a name and just threw it on the jersey.
I'm sure their marketing team did their research. They're professionals, right? There's thought put into it. There was not going to be a single name that has enough Cleveland history to unite a whole fan base on a change. So I'm sure they found some good history to tie with it. I don't know that. I'd be happy to look up the story, though.
I'm going to. I briefly ran into it, but I don't want to half-ass it. I don't have all the details in front of me.
I like it.
I'm going to look.
This is similar to me, to your point, El, about remember the conversation we had on one of our earlier shows about Fernando Tatis and just enjoying himself and hitting. They had a huge lead at the time, and he was swinging away on a 3-0 count and hit a home run. I think he hit a grand slam, actually.
Yes, he did.
He really pissed off the old school heads in the baseball community. And I think it's great. He said, I'm just going out there and having fun. I think he even got reprimanded by his manager at the time.
Which I didn't go for then. Don't go for it today.
I'm like, dude, but you're aiming to get this younger generation involved, and that kind of couples with L's point too. Like you gotta adapt or die, man. Adapt or die, and you got to keep the ratings up. You have to keep people interested, and home runs on a 3-0 count and name changing of teams and going away from whatever kind of history you consider that name, the Indians.
So
it's time for change, and it's a good thing.
To fill in the gap here, SI ran a nice little story talking about why they chose the name. The Guardians of Traffic statues have flanked both sides of the Hope Memorial Bridge since 1932, to quote directly from the article. Check it out. It's a good one. But basically, they picked something that was near and dear to Cleveland's heart, near the baseball stadium, and applied it to their name. It's a great move. And to wrap up on your point, at least from my perspective, sports entertainment. Baseball is not great spectacle most of the game, right? You got to really know the nitty gritty to love it the way you guys do.
It's very much theater.
Yeah, right.
Very much theater.
And compared to some of the other popular sports that are more flashy, there's a lot more eye candy going on in some cases. Baseball's got to do all the marketing moves, and this is a great step, in my opinion.
I agree. I think it's the right move, just in general. I mean, any last points before we wrap this show up, guys? What else do you want to touch on?
Do you guys have so much as a feeler on this Aaron Rodgers stuff? I know that we're going to be doing a roundtable in the near future. Just curious.
Yeah,
we're definitely going to be recording our roundtable as part of our fan-centered episodes. We're going to be putting that out hopefully in the next few weeks, recording that roundtable. Hopefully this week before we go see a baseball game in person. Man, imagine that shit.
Wanted to put you on the spot, see if you're still holding it sacred. Let me tell you, man, we are keeping our silence just as good as Aaron Rodgers is.
We do have a great show for you guys. We're doing a nice little roundtable on this long interview format for you. We're hopefully going to come up with a great product for you. Really looking forward to it. We're not going to give you any more details. Just stay tuned. It's all going to be Aaron Rodgers related and Green Bay Packer related. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Jordan Patrick Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you very much. Good to see you guys. Take care, Rich. Take care, Al.
See you, man.